Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy and privileged and delighted for this guest today. She is my sister. Her name is Grace Cavalieri, and she was the Maryland's 10th Poet Laureate. Right beside me here, I'm featuring a mermaid piece of her artwork. Yes, she's an artist too. Among all the things that she does, during COVID, she had this opportunity and time and love to make this for me. I'm so touched. Really, I just told her, I keep pinching myself that she's on the show today. Her new book, Owning the Not So Distant Future, which is behind me, won the Blue Light Book Award this year, 2024. And the long game poems, and I think I have them right here. Anyway, I'll come back to that. The long game poems, new and selected poems, was published in 2023. You know what I'm leaving out? She's written 30 books and I think like 24 plays, and they were on Broadway. And this is my stack. These are all signed Grace Cavalieri books, and I treasure them. Treasure them. She found it and still produces The Poet and the Poem for public radio. Now it comes out from the Library of Congress for like, I don't know, she's been doing it for like 48 years or something. Yes, on air, 48 years in 2025. Grace was formerly the Assistant Director for Children's Programming, Corporate PBS, and a Senior Media Officer, NEH. And she's won so many awards and has so many stories. It just will warm your heart. Among awards, she holds the Allen Ginsberg Award and the CPB Silver Medal. She's an Academy of American Poets Fellow, and Grace has written over the 36 books and produced them, and they've been on American stages. And yes, there's more. The next coolest thing, well, she's got so many cool things, but 200 of her poems from the 200, I believe they're podcasts from the Poet and Poem podcast, yes, were launched to the moon on NASA's Lunar Codex in 2023. So her poems, someday someone will read those or hear those podcasts some way, somehow, and see them. One of my favorite ones that she has is Anna Nicole. She really reaches out to women who didn't get their voice heard or their voice got twisted. And she signs your books, and she puts, oh, look at this one, the little line. Can you see? She signs your books and she puts a ribbon in it as a bookmarker. And without further ado, let me bring on my sister, Grace Cavalieri. Oh, Grace, I'm graced with your presence.
We should not, people must know that we aren't from the same mother, but it's just this loving bond we have where I could call upon Cynthia in the middle of the night and she would be there for me. I could need anything and it would be on my front step for me. And that's what I call a sister, because just sisters don't have to come through the same mother. In fact, we have had some bad effects with that. But a sister is one you bond with. And I've searched the world for sisters, and everyone I find has added to my life. And Cynthia's right at the top there. She is the most loving, giving, generous person. Well, now people are sick of us complimenting each other. Cynthia, I know they've already tuned out. They said, let the two of them talk to each other.
That works too. I don't mind at all. I'm so honored to be here with you and for you to be on my podcast. I'm wearing your moon that you gave me for blessings.
And it's got a blessing in it.
Everyone keep reaching for the moon because the poems and poetry are up there.
Keep your dream alive. And that's your holy Amala beads that you can chant with. So this woman, I am looking at angels around her. She can't fail. She's blessed today. So this is going to be very special, I think, us two together in one algorithm.
It's interesting because I moved into this neighborhood, I don't know, maybe 17 years ago or so. And I met Grace's husband, Ken. In fact, I would meet him often because I went around and did, Leukemia Society, Homeowners Association stuff, St. Jude's, American Heart Association, and numerous others. And he always contributed. And he said, one day you and Grace will be great friends.
Isn't that something? He was so right. He was so right. And I think that after he passed, Cynthia and I happened to get together, and I forget what the reason was. I think you came for breakfast or something. And then it's sister all the way, sister all the way.
Actually, that's an amazing story. Grace saw me working in the window, and she walked over and knocked on the door and said, "You're coming for lunch." And I just dropped everything and walked out and was gone for 4 hours.
Well, the time was right. You know, time is a divine thing. And apparently, when you and Ken were friends, I was always working, of course. The timetable wasn't right for us. Now there's room for the two of us to go to Grump's and have breakfast and just be there for each other. That's really very important.
You are an amazing woman and have gone through so many amazing things. Why don't we just touch on your husband for a moment, what you went through with him, and because that's a lot being a wife of a naval officer.
It was very hard. Being a military wife is very hard. And I don't think the last book has been written about that. People just simply do not know what you go through. And you move every year. You know, maybe you have children, you're living in a motel till you can find a house, or an apartment till you can find the house. And there's Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
And
You too.
it's very important because the children are going from one school to another, and you have to make the family a nest so that it is entirely secure inside, so that the outside is not important, really. Whatever happens outside, we can deal with. So you keep that unity going. And Ken was gone 9 months at a time. And sometimes I was alone on an island with 4 children under 5 years old. You know, it was not easy, but you know what? Some of us really believed in the mission, and Ken believed in something bigger than himself. And we were very, very devoted to the Navy. We believed in it. You know, these people that go into the military and diss it don't bother me. You know, what would the world be without people who are heroes? And Ken landed on a carrier in the Black Ocean that looked like a postage stamp, as big as a postage stamp with no lights. Must have been, I bet he landed 800 or 1,000 times. And so the men have to close their hearts and become automatons to create these things. So it was a very interesting 25 years, and we were married 60 years. So the last 20, we were on shore duty, and that's actually from I forget what date, but the last half of our life, we were on shore duty. So we could be normal citizens. And we both pursued our arts, which he'd been waiting to do.
And he was also a swimmer.
All-American swimmer, Navy tennis champion for the 13th District, race car driver until we had children, and naval aviator. And I don't know if I ever showed you the book, Cynthia, but he built his own airplane from scratch. And one day over tea, we'll have to thumb through that book and see where he has noted every screw, every nail. It's so methodical. So that is The Man Who Got Away. I have a book called The Man Who Got Away. But we had a good time, and he adored you because he saw your spirit right away and knew you were the right thing. Mm-hmm.
And he also was an artist and did this amazing kind of work.
Yes, you know, he invented the lost wood process. And if people can see that Madonna was carved out of wood, and it took him 3 years to carve it, and it was beautiful. And I said, let it stay. Please, Ken, let it stay. But he had a vision, and he filled it full of roofing nails, dripped molten bronze, and then burned the wood out. So the form is made of metal lace, and it's called the lost wood process. And all of his work is that very same method. He healed himself, Cynthia, when he came back from Vietnam. He never had to kill anyone, but he was changed. And he had always wanted to pursue his art. So he went, he just meditated into that flame, into that wood. And from that came gleaming, shining statues. His pain is inside because the nails are on side, but the outside is a man who is healed. So people do heal through art, Cynthia. It's been proven.
And Grace leads people to heal through heart, educating teens, people all over the world globally. And you know what? How does she do that? Because she is diligent, hardworking, and dedicated to her craft. She gets up every morning and writes every day. And okay, ladies and gentlemen, this woman swims every day, drives her car, maintains an entire household, works every day, gives speeches to people, writes poems for special occasions, for big events. I've seen her. She's at her Library of Congress, and she keeps going. And she's 92 years old. And look at her. She is so fabulous. I want you to go to, now you did all of that and you made through it and you kept your art going the whole way. How did you do that, Grace?
That's a really good question, Cynthia. I think art is a life force for some people, and they really cannot live without it. And it kept me going. Even when Ken was at sea, I would just scribble in my little notebooks. And, you say I've written 30 books, but when you think that I'm 92 and I've written every day my adult life, it's not difficult to accumulate material. The only thing is if you're dedicated enough to make books and to seek publishers and to enter that race and to pit yourself against commercial products, because poetry has no price tag, It has no place in the marketplace. So there you are creating something no one wants because it's like love. There's no price on it. It's pure spirit. And you do it because it is a wonderful way to live. You're a writer. Weren't you happy when you were writing your books?
Yes.
You get into that bubble and you're your best version of yourself.
It's very peaceful and very frustrating.
Of course. What isn't? Love is very peaceful and very frustrating too. I can't. And so what was frustrating about it?
Trying to make it sound good and worthy. Worthy. You help your students with worthiness and courage. And you do that in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think you've hit upon something really important about writing, and it is courage. Anybody can use language, but it takes a lot of strength to put out your real feelings, to show your wound, to tell the truth, to take risks. That is what we teach. We don't teach language because everyone can write a sentence. We do teach the courage to say it. And you did in 2 books, probably starting your number 3, right?
I am, yes.
We have only 29 more to go to catch up before you're 92. You can do this.
Bar high.
You can do this.
Wow. If it makes me live to 92 and work and be as wonderful as you are, I am game for it.
Well, I think work is holy. And I do believe that it's in connection to the divine. Because to create something that didn't exist before is a holy thing. It's like being in touch with the divine. So our work is really, it should be fulfilling. Digging ditches is horrible and manual labor is horrible, but we've been given the luxury of doing a life of the mind. And that is much easier, I think, than working in a cafeteria or, we've all had jobs like that. I worked in retail after high school every day and college, and we've all had those kinds of jobs. But to have a profession that you believe in, I don't know what other people do without it, really. Your profession is absolutely about aesthetics. Is it not true that beauty in every form is what you market? whether it's in language, physicalness, or whether it is in your behavior. You do the bodybuilding contests, won 3 trophies this year. You did so much modeling in your life. That was all about physical beauty. Then you do this podcast to show off other people, to give them a platform. And that is spiritual beauty. And everything you do, when you give me something and the little bow is tied just right, or the plant is in a perfect pot, I say, oh my gosh, he spent so much time on this. Beauty, 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 beauty. It's what you live for.
It makes my heart sing.
Yeah. And so you can't stand ugly.
Mm-mm. Well, you can always find something beautiful in everything.
That's what I mean. But I mean, you don't go toward anything, because once I told you to watch a program and you said it was too down. It was too down for you.
Oh, yes. I think we agreed on that one.
But I went right back and you didn't.
Yes. Well, you probably knew all the people involved. So, you always do your due diligence and support everybody so nicely. Tell us about your journey to becoming Maryland's 10th Poet Laureate.
I did not nominate myself. They have a panel, and people in the state nominate you, and then the panel sits around and talks about you. And I was really honored when Governor Hogan, at his inauguration, I was named Poet Laureate. And that was 2018. So I'm still hanging in there because Governor Moore has been very busy with the Key Bridge collapse and hasn't had time to appoint a new laureate, you can imagine. And so he's done a fabulous job, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous Maryland governor. He's on his way to big politics. So poetry isn't a top priority, but they'll get around to a new poet laureate. In the meantime, I'm rocking and rolling.
But words are a priority.
True. It is true. And the Maryland Arts Council does value language and poetry, and they've been very, very good supporting me. Very good. Anything I wanted to do, they made it available. The one thing a poet laureate has to do is travel to every one of the counties in Maryland and do some kind of workshop. Well, Western Maryland is like 2 days away. Fortunately, my twin daughters took off that year and they were retiring anyway. And they drove me around the state because I'd be thumbing it,
I would have driven you. Hi, Randy. Thank you for joining. Wait till you find out more about Grace Cavalieri. She is amazing. I totally love when you were teaching in one of those counties and you were doing something for the children and you were planting seeds and you were telling them about if they wore the dress too long or the suit too long.
Oh, you remember that? No, I said that's so cool. When I go into the first grade and I try to teach what poetry does, I always say one thing, it rinses off language. If we didn't have poetry, we'd all sound like news reporters with no animation. And I say to the little children, if you had to wear that dress all year or that suit all year, wouldn't it get dusty and dirty? And they say, oh, yes. And I say, well, that's the way words are. We have to rinse them off and clean them off. And then they're right. They get it. Kids get it. They're easier to access poetry than adults who have their armor on.
And you did a lot for the teenagers. You had a whole teenage program.
That was my main commitment because I think the teenagers today, as you know, have these plugs going out and teenagers don't know who they are yet. They're all image or defense. When I was a teenager, I know that my defenses would have to meet your defenses because you were so afraid of image. But so I would take them into exercises where they would go into their lives in each year of their lives and find a story. And guess what? They found out they had interior lives, that life wasn't all out there, that they really had everything was inside that you need. Everything we need is inside of us because all of the past is there. And if you can access it, everything you have, every wound you had, you can heal. Well, the teenagers just took to it. Some got in touch with their grandparents, some cried, and they had a new tool. When they left, they had a new tool that they could take into life with them to go into themselves. And we should do it more. People should have more self-knowledge, I think. I mean,
guys, are you listening? This applies to every one of you. Writers, screenwriters, actors, actresses, politicians, church leaders, yourself, your children. This is universal. And I think if everyone was writing just a little bit every day, one, you would get more discipline, which is sorely needed. Two, you would express your voice. And three, maybe you'll get published. And that's like working on your legacy.
Very good idea. Very good idea. You know, everyone, Cynthia, has a story. Every human being has a story. And everyone can tell their story if they can talk. Now, your story is different from mine, and that's the miracle. No two people have the same story. And if you don't tell yours, you will come and go, and I will not know you. So I always have people see the importance. Their legacy is telling about their life because there's nobody else that has it. It's inimitable. It is all there, all theirs. So writing, as you can see, has many, many rivers into human conduct, insight, self-knowledge, self-fulfillment. It's not all about showing off, although it feels good if someone likes your stuff. But it's having an interior world and then sharing that with the outer world, I think, which you do. And you do it in so many ways with your podcast and all of your physical activities. I see your car gone all the time at 5 o'clock in the morning and think, oh my God, she's working out already.
That's true. What inspired you to start writing poetry? And how did you get your first book published? Because that's quite a feat to get started.
Yeah. Every poet, and I've interviewed maybe 4,000 in my life.
Only 4,000? Oh, she's got another 1,000 in her, ladies and gentlemen. You could add your name to that list.
I'm such a gold brick, only 4,000. But every one of them, Cynthia, says to me, Grace, you won't believe it. I used to write as a child. And I say, no, really? Because every writer came out that way. We come out wired to understand the world through language. Writers really come out wired. And most of them have written as children. I certainly did. My first book was written in 1976.
I'm looking to see if I have it.
And it's a little book. It's Why I Cannot Take a Lover. I'll have to give it to you.
I have that one.
It has little stars on it. It's very thin. And okay, here you go. We started a publishing house to get ourselves published.
Brilliant.
And as soon as you get launched, nobody knows the difference. Then you market, you market yourself. But it was a fabulous poetry house. It was called the Washington Writers Publishing House. It's still going on. They have more than 100 titles in print. I've turned over the presidency a long time ago. The idea was to get 3 poets, and then they would work very hard to keep it running. And then we'd get 3 more poets. Then they would work very hard. So it was an inverted pyramid, so that you started small, and then you had a whole contingency of volunteers keeping this thing going. And look at it. It's still going today. 50 years. It's celebrating its 50th this year. Woo. So we started that just to get published, but it did a lot of good for other people too. And then after that, you have to hit this pavement, peddling your stuff. But um, I keep saying, what else should I be doing?
Well, actually, people come to her. This is an article here called, it's in this little Outlook magazine. And people come to her. They can't wait to give a moment of her time.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. I don't even have a copy of that. You're pretty savvy.
I might
You're in the know, girl.
you after I make a copy of it.
No, I think mine's at the library. You're pretty.
The Library of Congress, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you should tell us a little bit about the Library of Congress and your podcast there, because this is amazing.
I love that place. I don't know how many of your people are on the East Coast or how much of your audience is even in Washington, but it is as beautiful as the Versailles. That building is as beautiful as any temple in Europe. And it is just, the ceilings are all frescoes and hand painted. So I started radio in 77 on public radio in Washington for 20 years. Then I took my program to the library to go national. And it's been there for 28 years almost. So I used to go every week, but then COVID stepped in and I started doing Zoom. So now it's a hybrid. I'll be going the 9th again, and then I'll be Zooming again. But I'm going to try to make it to my 50th year on air without interruption. Ken used to say, who could interrupt her?
I love it. 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 How about having your works launched to the moon on NASA's Lunar Codex?
Just shoot me now. Just shoot me while I'm happy.
No. I need you.
A physicist who happened to be a poet got in touch with another poet I know who got in touch with me. And his whole thing is getting cultural materials into a launch. So we were in the first launch. It was called Lunar Codex. And he took 91 countries, Cynthia, poets and artists and musicians and books. And he took artists from 91 countries and put them on a disc this big, as big as a quarter. All that was on this, as big as a quarter, all that information. So you can't even imagine the science that it is. And he rents space from NASA. He is a very successful physicist, and he rented space. And in 2023, or was it 24? 20 last year. It went up in July, and it landed in the ocean of storms. What a place for poetry. So someday they're going to have the technology to somehow plug something in, and they'll hear a symphony from Santa Fe, and they'll see a book from LA, and they'll hear the poet and the poem. And when I was born in 1932, we didn't even have television, right? And now I'm on the moon. I call it from Trenton to the moon.
Isn't this an amazing life?
Isn't it? Or haven't we?
It's amazing.
Aren't we glad that we are living in these times?
Yes.
It is just so
nice of you to join us. Can you believe this woman? She is freaking amazing.
Brian says, "Oh, stop."
I can't.
Let's talk about Cynthia for a bit.
No, I want you to share what the story behind your new book, because that's a good one. Owning the not so distant. What it means.
I don't know how you did that, but Cynthia has taken the cover of my book and made a back wallpaper out of it. Talk about going to the moon. I don't know how you did it.
Well, we'll teach her.
Please. Oh, I would never be that sophisticated.
Oh, yes, you are. Look at you're on Zoom right now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how many 92-year-olds do you know that are doing their own podcast every week and every day? And she teaches on Zoom every day, right?
Just 4 days a week.
Oh, excuse me.
I broadcast the 5th day. And I swim every day. I think that's important. You work out too every day. And I do believe.
Back to your book.
Back to my book. Well, it's just what happened is the Blue Light Press, I had just had a big book published called The Long Game. I have to give you a copy. I don't know if you have it yet. It just came out last year, and I haven't even gotten orders. I haven't got my box yet, but it is new and selected. So it was like 300 pages. So
all these books, and I don't have that one.
we better catch you up to date. I'll hand it over tomorrow. It'll be on your front porch. So
actually, I did have it. I went to one of your readings and I bought it, but
oh,
there was only a few there. And the girl in front of me really wanted it, and she wanted it signed by you. And I figured I could always get one. So I gave her mine. And then she went and got it signed by you. That's what happened.
so that I remember that distinctly. So like you. Absolutely. That's so typical, Cynthia.
But back to the new book.
Yes. Well, anyway, Blue Light Press asked me for a manuscript. Oh my gosh. I had just put out 300 pages and I had to go past through the files and find poems that had not been published. And I tweaked them and burnished them and sparkled them and sent them in, and they did publish the book. And it is a beautiful thing to have, really, because it documents things that I had forgotten. And a lot of it is our love poems to Ken, and a lot of them are Navy wife, the difficulties, poems about Navy wife, how difficult it was. And so I'm glad to chronicle those and to document them. And then it won the award. So I say, I better make 93. I got a lot to do.
Yes, you do. Do you want to read us a couple of your favorite poems?
I would love to read you one poem because you mentioned work. And it is true that people come and go, but we always have our work. If we have meaningful work, there's always something to get up for in the morning on your desk. So this is called Work is My Secret Lover.
Ooh.
Work takes the palm of my hand to kiss in the middle of the night. It holds my wrist lightly and feels the pulse. Work is who you'll find with me when you tiptoe up the stairs and hear my footsteps through the shadows. You'll see me lift my arm to stretch and then lean down to put my head to it. Work threatened to die once for all that was left unsaid. So I took to it like a young bride flushed with excitement. Adultery too, yes, I admit it. On the holidays, when others gathered at the table, I was dreaming of it, making love to the movement of paper, the words from my lips, the feel of it. Sometimes, when company came, I threw a tablecloth over my work and set the plates, and everyone acted as if nothing were visible, pretending I was the good hostess that I was. While on the Christmas tree, work waited patiently among ornaments gleaming like a groom. I am guilty as charged, for nothing else could buy my feelings. And why would I sell the only thing that ever loved me the way I loved back? But my beautiful, long-lasting, faithful lover, my friend who will never leave. Thank you, darling.
Oh.
Thank you. Yes, husbands come and go, but my work is always there. But I'm glad I had 60 years of Ken, and he left me with a lot of resources, all the paper I can use, a computer that works, a pencil. I'm ready to go, rock and roll.
And your smile and your brain and your spirit and your heart. And folks, if you aren't doing what is your passion, find a way to put it in every day. Even if you don't have any time, you can wake up in the morning and do 5 or 10 minutes as Grace does. Just scribble a line and let your soul out.
Or meditate, but get in touch with your interior life, because the world isn't all that much. The world will betray us, and we kind of create our own reality, you know. I truly mean that our vision and our beliefs make things happen. So you got to have a vision first, and you got to have a belief and the trust that the universe will support you. You just got to get the vibe. Cynthia's got the vibe.
Yes, and you have to be grateful.
Do you know? Say more about that, please. Say more about appreciation.
Do you want to have a better life? Do you want to be friends with someone like Grace? Do you want to attract the right people into your life? Well, you start that by just waking up in the morning. I do it all day long, and just acknowledging your life and everything that you have. Because, we live better than kings and queens, and we have absolutely everything. So, Grace, you are a queen.
Oh,
Really shares. And I'm so grateful for her even being here on this podcast and being in my life and being in the world.
You make old people happy. That's what you do. Cynthia, appreciation is the highest spiritual principle there is. Because you're right. If you appreciate, you get more of it. Whatever you appreciate, you'll get more of. And so if you want to hang out in the mud, that's what you'll get. I thank you for reminding us about that, because it's the first thing I should do when I wake up in the morning. Look, we are not in Gaza. We are not in the Congo. We are not in the Sahara. Our children were not starved. Cynthia, we must be appreciative. We must. We are very fortunate to have been born in this country.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate. And you have to be appreciative of your health.
Health is very interesting because you're a goddess of the physical. And I mean, your body is an award-winning body. We won't go into that. We won't show it right now because this is a family program. But you did win 3 trophies in a bikini and high heels. Just saying. I did. I just hung my bikini up for the duration. But
you swim every day.
I do. And how about the mind, though? I mean, doesn't the mind deserve that much illumination? And I think some people like prayer, some people like meditation. I like SSS. Sit silent, sit still silently for 5 minutes a day. Look, Joe has his bikini in play. This is shocking. Joe, too much information. TMI, Joe. No, this is a family show.
And Eric says this is one of his podcasts, so he's so glad he's here. So thank you, guys.
Eric rocks.
I am so glad that you're here, because you know what, guys? I didn't think Grace would come on. And long ago, when she was Poet Laureate, she said she can't do it because of the Library of Congress and her contract with them. And then I don't know why, but I was just like, what are you doing on Wednesday? And she looked at for once there was an opening, like magic. The universe was looking out for us, and it said, Grace is
cracking me up. You are cracking me up. We have to go have a hamburger soon.
I would love to
continue this conversation, because you're a wild child, Cynthia.
Just like you.
Calm down.
Tell us about your experiences working as the assistant director for children's programming.
The old Library of Congress excuse again. You know this, Joe. Do you know Joe Ingram?
Yes, he's fabulous.
I was going to say, is he? He's
got a great sense of humor, and he's very active and very supportive, and he's very, very smart, and he's very aligned with us.
Well, I hate to have him in a bikini, though. That is a little embarrassing.
Oh, I don't know. I think it'll be fun.
Well, anyway,
he can go topless.
Yeah, he can. Joe, settle down. Well, I put WPFW on the air in 1977. I quit teaching at Antioch to raise money to put a new FM station on the air so that we could get poetry on the air and jazz. And so I was there for a few years. Of course, nothing I did made any money as a poet, and certainly WPFW didn't pay us anything. So I had to I had 4 kids, and it was about time for me to get a straight job. Ken was pretty nice. I got a job, my first job as playwright in residence at Antioch College. I came home and I said, Ken, I finally have a job. I'm going to make $1,000 a year. And he was so happy he bought me a Porsche to go to work.
I love it.
He was so happy that I was going to be an income earner.
What color?
Yeah. Oh, it was red. Are you
Oh, of
kidding
course
me?
it was red. Woo!
So, after WPFW and Antioch and all these poety things, I saw an advertisement that PBS was looking for someone who had radio experience because television was just going into simulcast, which meant that radio would be duplicating the same visual. So I thought, this has my name all over it. And I had a degree, I had two graduate degrees in education. So I big dealed my way through there, bought myself a designer suit and got some high heels, went to the Limited and got a pair of earrings and just sold myself. So it was a beautiful job, helping to produce new children's programming. I was there at the beginning of Reading Rainbow, which you probably were born on. Probably saw that. I agree. Joe, I agree. Rap is it. I am a big rap fan. Big. Not the bad guys, not the gangsters, not the bad people. When it was starting to diss women and everything. But I think that you are right. Rap is the new poetry. So, anyway, we did children's programming. I was in charge of the daytime schedule, which meant I had to fill it in with programs because the daytime schedule went to all public radio. Mm-hmm. And then we had prime time, which was another department. So that was great. And then media is like a turnstile. It is no other, there's no place else that moves people so fast, in and out. So they restructured and they brought in a commercial person from children's programming, which broke my heart because PBS was starting to go commercial. You see, when I was there in the 80s, they didn't have any advertisements. It was pure. They wanted to be the fourth network. So they were going more toward that thing. And so I became a consultant for the arts. And then I was so depressed because I was like, I didn't have my secretary anymore and my expense account, and I couldn't fly to New York on Fridays. So bad. So I was depressed and I went to bed and I got a phone call from the National Endowment for the Humanities that said they would like to begin funding children's media and would I come head that department. Got back that designer suit, got on those high heels, went and did it. And I was there for 5 years and was able to get some poetry on prime time. We gave millions of dollars to programs. And I found out that $1 million wasn't all that much.
Oh, not
and I funded one program. And then I commuted back and forth. Ken had a studio in West Virginia for his sculpting. And I used to commute. We had a condo in DC then. I used to commute back and forth on the train to NEH. And ooh, that got very long, 5 hours each way. Yeah. By the time I got off the train and taxi to the place, it was 5 hours. Same coming back, 10 hours of traveling a day. So I buttoned that up and went to West Virginia and stayed there for 20 years. Then my daughter had twins in Annapolis. And we were coming 3 days a week to help change those diapers. And we thought, what are we doing? West Virginia doesn't need us. And the Annapolis has the naval base and the Navy Yard is calling to us. So we've been here since 2021, I think. 2001.
2001, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. And I'm so lucky that you are. I'm so appreciative. The heavens have.
Well, we rarely see each other except to wave across the street. But being sisters, we will get together.
Yes.
Since you always get together with your sister, of course.
That's absolutely correct. Why don't we chat about your numerous awards, like the Allen Ginsberg Award and the CPB Silver Medal and the other zillion awards that you have? I've even seen you receive a few.
Yeah, I think Joe would rather talk about your bikini.
Oh, well, he's got something good. He always has something good. But meanwhile, let's talk about your awards.
You know, I don't know what an award means, but it gives you reason to go on. It's like a little kiss on the cheek that says you're okay, you know. Allen Ginsberg was a great poet, a beat poet, and I entered some poems and won that award 2 times from the Patterson Poetry Center. This Corporation for Public Broadcasting silver medal was really interesting because when I was on WPFW, because I hated that poetry was in a ghetto and every radio station would have a poetry corner with 1 poem a month, I put poetry on every year for 12 hours, 1 day a year, 12 hours of live poetry and jazz from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. We called it Ribbon of Song, and it was a big deal for me to produce. And CPB saw that as a great thing for the community. So that is where I got that. And, you know, I just work and work and work. And sometimes I get a ribbon for my hair. Well, the National Commission of Working Women recognized me and I said, amen, sister. That's the one I'll claim. That is the one I'll claim.
Do you want to discuss with us your creative process? And also that story about the teenagers, how you get them going. And when you were teaching that class, that kind of ties together with your creative process, I think.
That is really, there's an opening there because I heard a spiritual leader whose name is Brian Christopher, who has been guiding me my whole life. And he said our lives were like a building and that each floor was a different year. So that I'm 92, I'm a skyscraper. I have 92 floors. If you're 5, you have 5 floors. If you're 10, but if you have that, you still have a story on every floor. So what I would get the teenagers to do is to go into the elevator of their lives. I would make them meditate first. You may think that's funny, but you know, I would say, okay, humor me. Pretend, you know, you're not going to get hurt. The worst thing that happens is you'll be relaxed for 5 minutes. I used to make them meditate, to sit still and to get into themselves, then to get in the elevator of their lives. And wherever that elevator stopped, they got off and they looked around to see what was there. Now, it might be their father leaving their mother and the car driving away. It could be something, or it could be a surprise party with a puppy. They found the elevator and they found the floor. And if you can't see something, you get back on the elevator and go to a different floor. Now, in my own life, I did it. I went into the elevator of my life and I got off at the 10th floor. And I could see in the 5th grade in the schoolyard where the people were bullying a little boy and I couldn't help them. And I wrote about that. I could see, I went up to the 20th floor, closed my eyes and got off and looked around. And Ken couldn't get off the carrier to make our wedding. And it was postponed 3 times. So every floor has a story. And if you want to write your life, just go up that elevator and tell your story. And so that's a great process for young people who think, you know, how do I start? How do I start? That's the big question.
And you start by sprinkling seeds everywhere.
That is planting a seed. You know, whatever seed we plant and that we water will grow. So, I mean, if we plant a seed of hatred and water it every day, guess what we'll get? If we plant a seed of creativity every day, that's what we'll get. And you plant a seed of goodness every day, and I will help you water that.
Thank you.
You know why I have a weak voice? I've been podcasting all day. I did a wonderful poet who's married to a Palestinian woman, and her heart is broken. She's lost 40 members of her family. But I've done 2 podcasts today. So you're getting the last of my voice.
Oh, I don't want to take your voice, but I want to share your passion and your soul and your spirit with everyone so that they can get a little seed for them to nurture and keep up the good works.
And then they can come have a hamburger with us.
Yeah.
Only if they plant the seed. They have to qualify.
And I also love the way you can make anything into a poem or a story. that little girl who picked the flower.
You know, everything is worth, every broken piece of glass on the floor is worth a story. Anything that happens is worthy of saying, because then we make it permanent. It's like making life, writers live twice. First they see it, then they say it. And that's a beautiful way. You get a double whammy. And it's just a rich thing to do. And, you know, writers come and go, but their writing stays, doesn't it?
It does. That's your legacy.
Black Pearl will be floating along when we're having at Grumps in heaven.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. What advice do you have for our aspiring poets who are just starting out, or anyone who's just starting to write or act or make a film or any of the arts, sculpt?
Yeah, that's a good question. Taking a risk is the only courage there is. And not taking a risk, you'll never do it. You know, I think that people think they have to sit down and just write. You can't make soup without ingredients. So you go through the day and writers see a green tree with light on it, and they might jot that down. And they might hear somebody on the elevator say something. They might jot that down. The writer is a funnel. All day long, listening, noticing, hearing, watching, and scribbling. So you get a bunch of images you throw on your desk at the end of the day. And when you get a feeling to write, and for poetry, it's mostly kind of a melancholy feeling, an inside feeling. All you have to do is get a topic and then look through those fragments on your desk. Because guess what? They all came from you. So they're all going to be meaningful. They're all going to have some odd connection. So I believe that it's very practical to collect images all day. If you know a writer, you see them suddenly writing on a cocktail napkin or the back of a matchbox. They keep little spiral notebooks in their pockets. Collect images. You can't write without ingredients. That's my firm belief, Cynthia.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And don't forget to add a little sugar, a little honey, a little spice to your story. Top.
Yep, you got to have it. You got to have a little humanity.
How about a little bit about your plays and the impact on American stages, and maybe your Anna Nicole?
Maybe no one remembers Anna Nicole Smith. I wonder, because she was a bimbo, but she was my bimbo. I loved her. She was a Playgirl bunny. You know, she was a Guess Jean model. And the men just filled her full of drugs, then propped her up and made her a buffoon on a reality show. It just burned me up, really. When she had her baby and she was on television, I saw her beautiful cheekbones and she had no makeup on. And I saw how she was the real Anna Nicole, what she could have been. So I wrote a play which vindicated her. It was called Anna Nicole Blonde Glory. And the book of poems is called just Anna Nicole. It was off Broadway. And I gave her everything she wanted. I gave her a doctor. I gave her a baby. I vindicated her. What I did in the play was show the handlers and how they distorted her life and how she almost had a chance. I had one scene where a photographer knew what she really could be like and asked to take her picture as in a simple picture of her real person. And she was so thrilled that someone really saw her. And then in the play, her manager just tears up that contract. So I did imagine these things, but they were based on her life. And I've had 4 plays about famous women who the world has not acknowledged. And I felt I wanted to rescue them. So I did. It didn't cost me anything but a couple years of my life.
And name your other 3.
Well, Harriet Powers was the first slave who had a beautiful quilt that was not lockstep. It was Picasso. She was a genius. And it's hanging in the Smithsonian.
Mm.
And there are other quilts in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. And the Smithsonian commissioned me to write a play about her because we didn't know anything. We only knew that she was married. She had 5 children. She lived in Athens, Georgia, and she had made this quilt. And I had to research. I went down to Georgia and I went into the courthouse with their mildewed boxes and all their smelly, they didn't keep slave records in file cabinets. Go through all the records, and I got enough material. And I had to answer the question, why would a woman sell her spelled quilt that healed people for $5? And that's what she did. That was fact. And my only imagination could come up with to save a child. That's the only transaction I could think of. So I built the play around that, and it's been all over the country. It was in New York just 2 years ago. And so I feel these women. I dream of them. They thank me. They thank me.
Yes.
Now you know that I'm bonkers.
No, I know that the character came to you and
you came through me.
You embodied them so that they could have their voice.
And I did Mary Wollstonecraft, the first woman in the 1800s who wrote The Vindication of the Rights of Women, and men burned her in effigy because they didn't want her to start a school for girls. That's all she wanted to do. So I wrote a play about her, and another play about a woman. I was looking up 18th century authors, and I saw all these men, and I thought, well, this is very interesting, because Madame de Staël wrote 40 books, and her name 40, and they were plays, books, treatises. She helped unseat Napoleon in France. She was part of a political party that undermined him and got him out. But who knew who she was? So I spent a year researching her and got a play out of that, and a book called, what is this called? Oh, The Secret Letters of Madame de Staël.
Wow.
Well, we've surely burned up this hour.
I know. I have so many more questions, but do you want to talk about Life on the Wicked Stage real quick?
Oh, that's my memoir. Oh,
yes, if you want to know more about Grace.
That's a picture from 1979. Oh, man.
I would recommend this one.
I recommend being that young again. That one is when Ken died, I thought, I have all these memories. I can't hold on to them. I'm going to lose them. So every day I sat down and just put one thing down. Maybe it was not chronological. I didn't start at birth. Maybe I started at PBS. I thought, what did I do at PBS? And then I wrote that chapter. I thought about the time Ken and I were invited to the German embassy because they were taking Sesame Street, and that was one of my programs. So we were so happy to go to the German embassy, and we were welcomed, and they were so charming. And Ken said, how did you sneak all this art out of East Germany? And it was dead silent. We were in the wrong embassy. We were in the East German embassy. It was dead silent. Ken and I just picked up our coats and walked quietly away and went home and had a big martini. It was a terrible moment, really, because it was dead silent. That was when in the 80s, before the wall came down.
Yeah.
And we didn't know, because I think like the invitations say GDR and DRG, and we didn't know which one was which. We thought we were invited to the Western German. So that's in my memoir, and little things I remembered about sticking our feet in our mouths. So thank you, Cynthia. We will continue this across the street.
Wonderful. What would you like to leave our audience with? By the way, I looked at Amazon, and actually 36 of her books show up. So, a couple of them are duplicates. They're in softback. They're very affordable. They're amazing reading. And remember to listen to your soul, because it's your nature. Listen to that voice inside of you.
I think I would like to leave with that, if you don't mind. I
and
love
it's your nature to be amazing, Grace.
Well, let's open that champagne.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you all for joining. Share it out. Tell everyone about her because she dropped some beautiful nuggets, little seeds that you can plant in your own life to live your best life.
Oh, rock on, Cynthia.
Because you are amazing.
We are all amazing.
Yes, we are. See you next time. Bye-bye.